When we think of motion, we are constantly reminded of physics. The concept, or perhaps the notion of motion, while it stems from physics, has a far deeper and philosophical element to it, of which our mental health is dependent. As while motion is something that we all witness and experience, motion is beyond something that we just do. As motion is something that we take little notice of until we are literally motionless. Just like when a train all of a sudden stops without notice, and we wonder why. This video will delve into the notion of motion, utilising the wisdom of some of the greatest thinkers, and will also give some insight as when we notice the notion of movement, it can change the way that we approach our everyday lives. Look through my library of videos under the Mind Philosophy brand, now into Mind Life, as we can get a better understanding of ourselves and what happens in our lives when we untangle our thoughts among its cacophonies of chaos. Aristotle famously states that life is movement, as even when we become so deeply indebted into our routines, we feel that nothing ever changes in our lives. There is, though, a constant among all of this, that in order to survive, we must keep on moving. For Aristotle, each movement has a notion of potentiality to actuality, and our potential is realised through movement, as only through repetition that we become masters of our movements. It is among our natural behaviour, which recognised by Schopenhauer as will, that brings us into a constant state of desire, where our bodies and minds can never be at rest, as we are perpetually in a striving motion into endless space. And where there are such desires, there is always change of our moods and feelings. Nietzsche explains that our moods enter a continuous movement of its highs and lows. And while this may seem overly obvious, he then proclaims that even when we are among our lumbering lows, we can still live a life of happiness. As when we encounter life's lows, we tend to constrict our physical movement. Yet it is from the attention that we give towards the sensation of our movements that can ease our trauma. This demonstrates how we can benefit from exercise, even simple walks or activities, as it allows our bodies to be in motion and at the same time engage our minds to notice each of its movements, bringing our minds and bodies into a state of equilibrium. So to summarise, we discovered the notion of motion with Aristotle, that life is movement. And we realise that each movement has a notion of potentiality to actuality. Through Schopenhauer, the notion of motion is our means of a striving desire, which he affirms as our will to live. Nietzsche then describes movement as an oscillation of our moods. And despite this, we can still live towards our pinnacle. Yet among our lows, we tend to withhold our movement, as it is movement itself that harnesses our ability towards our physical and mental equilibrium. The same tracks, therefore, of the earth are not some always sea, and others always continents, but everything changes in the course of time. Motion is not just a notion of nature. There is an ultimate sense of movement, and with it, a change in everything we know of in life. Stock and property markets will prosper and then perish. Business will thrive and then fail. Governments will reign and then be forced to resign. What we can appreciate from the simplicity of Aristotle's statement is that life is movement. It is a motion of moving forward in life, setting aside our grievances and disparities. And movement is essential to our prosperity, from a discovery of our potentiality to an actuality that we choose in life. No matter whether our goals are as grand as to fly into outer space, or to simply attend to the responsibilities of ourselves, family, and community. It is a notion of motion that is critical for the health of our body. It is a notion of motion that is critical for the health of our minds. It is a notion of motion that becomes critical for life.